Hello everyone and welcome to Clarity 16.3.3 Feature Supportability Training. I am Vib Mehrotra, and as part of this training section we will talk about the disabling of Classic UI, or in other words controlling the access to go to the Classic UI. As part of this release, we are now going to provide the capability for administrators to be able to control who can go to Classic UI within Clarity itself. All right. As part of that, let's go ahead and see the product in action. Let's see how we can secure it and how the end user behavior is going to be when trying to access Classic UI. As part of that, let's go into Clarity itself, and I'll cover about 4 different scenarios to show how this behavior will work. First, let's go look at how an administrator would even control the access to Classic UI. To do that, the administrator would go into the modern UX, go into administration, and then go into the actions within system settings. And there is a new action called Classic PPM Access. This by default, after either on a brand new install or an upgrade, is set up where it is enabled for all the user. In other words, it is going to function as Clarity does today, where any user that has access to go to the Classic UI will continue to do so without any impact on the application. However, once the administrator wants to restrict the access, then all they have to do is basically change the settings for this action, and the product will function accordingly. All right, so let's look at the 4 different scenarios. The first one is I'm going to completely disable this action, and we would see what will happen in that case. In each one of those scenarios, there will be 3 flows. The first will be is trying to go to Classic using the Classic PPM link from the modern UX itself. Second, seeing the channels that have been configured to go to the Classic UI, and then the third flow in there is going directly to Classic UI, whether it's using a bookmark or just knowing the URL itself. So 4 scenarios and 3 flows inside each one of it. All right, so the first one is the default scenario, which is I have the action and I have it enabled. It's not secured, no access, it doesn't matter. This is the default setting. In this case, if I now click on the Classic PPM, I am taken directly into the Classic UI. If I go into a channel, so I have a link configured here that will take me directly to one of the page in Classic UI. So it's a channel going into the Classic UI. When I click on that, it takes me directly to my channel, and this, for those who recognize this page, it's the resource planning portlet page with the multiple pages that I can click around, but it is the channel to Classic UI. And the third in here is I'm going to log in as a brand new user, which essentially is to mimic the scenario where I might be accessing it using a bookmark or just direct URL. In this case, I'm going to use the direct URL. And I'm going to log in as a different user. And you can see that I'm able to log in. So the product is functioning as it does today, or I should say prior to 16.3.3, where having that access or that action enabled without any security will continue to function, where users can access Classic UI. All right, let's log out of that. Now let's go back and go into the scenario number 2, which is I am going to basically go back and I am going to, in the action, I am now going to uncheck this. So I'm going to disable this action. And the intention or the expectation at that point is that no user, not even the administrator, will be able to go to Classic UI except for channels. So in all these cases, channels to Classic UI will continue to work, but any direct access to Classic UI will not. All right, so let's go to the second scenario. I'm going to now disable this. So nobody should have access. I'm going to log out and log in just so that I can reset all my any Classic UI that I might have configured. So right here it is, I've re-logged in, and the first thing is, remember, it is disabled. If I try to go to Classic PPM from here, I will get an unauthorized error. So I cannot go directly to or I cannot go from the Modern UX menu to the Classic UI. That is disabled. If I go into the channels, that takes me to Classic UI. That should continue to work. And so clicking on that, I can see the same page show up. So the channel continues to work. It is not impacted by that setting. And then the third flow is where I am going to just log in here. Actually, this is the previous screen that is already there. Let's go ahead and open a brand new one, because when this functionality or this action is disabled, trying to go directly to into Classic UI, you will see the unauthorized error, meaning you will not even get the login screen for Classic UI. So if that action is disabled, you cannot go directly to Classic UI, and you cannot go via the the Modern UX menu link. All right, let's close that again. Let's do our third flow. I'm going to go back into Modern UX. I'm going to go into Actions, and now I am going to enable it, and I'm going to click on Secure. What this configuration says is this action is enabled, meaning the users can go to Classic UI. However, it's going to be secured, and only the users that are in this access group can go, which, as you can see, I've not populated any user group. So that means the expectation is no user will be able to go to Classic UI. And there is a subtle difference between me completely disabling this or setting it up where it's enabled and secured with no user group. All right, and I'll show you the subtle difference. All right, so it is now configured, enabled, and secured. Let's go ahead and log out and log in again. And I'm intentionally doing a log out, log in rather than impersonation. All right, so now that I've re-logged in, again, the reason for log out login is to clear all the cookie sessions to make sure that it is a clean flow. All right, so now that I've re-logged in, the first is trying to go into the Classic PPM using the Modern UX link. Again, because while the action is enabled, it is secured and only in the user group can access it. I'm not in the user group. I see the unauthorized error. If I go to the channel, I can still see the channel. So again, remember, in all these scenarios, there is no impact to the channel. So I can go ahead again, access the channel. And the third flow is where I am going to log in to this page, again, using a bookmark. And in this case, the subtle difference comes. Notice that in here, I got the login screen. So when it is completely disabled, I do not even see the Classic UI login screen. I get the error right away. If it is enabled and secured, then the user is checked after they try to log in to see if the user is allowed to go into the Classic UI or not. So I'm going to log in as the user. And at this point, it'll then check, is the user that's logging in allowed to go in or not? And because I had not populated any user group, after login it says, well, the user is not in in that group. We are going to throw the error message unauthorized. So that's the subtle difference between completely disabled or enabled and then secured. All right, so let's close the last and let's do the last flow, which is now I am going to go back into that action, and now I'm going to populate an access group, and I'm going to populate it to an access group where I know that only I, which is Ian, is able to access Classic PPM. All right, so it is enabled, secured, and only Ian, who is a member of this group, can access it. So let's go ahead and log out. Again, just to always show you a clean flow. As Ian, once I come in here, I try to go to Classic, and because I'm a member of that group, I am able to go to Classic using the modern UX Classic PPM link. Of course, as expected, the channel should still continue to work. So in this case, I'm here and I can again navigate around as seeing the channels to Classic PPM. And if I go in here, again using the link as the user that does not belong to the user group that is secured, then as you would expect, that the user, when after trying to log in, will continue to get the unauthorized error. All right, and let's just to prove the point, in the same one, I'm going to go back and log in as Ian, and I should be able to log in directly. And I am in. So the user that is in that security group is able to perform or access Clarity UI as they could in the past. And that concludes our demo of how you can disable Classic UI, or in other words, control the access to the Classic UI starting Clarity 16.3.3. That concludes our training section. Thank you, everyone.